I'm Ryan O'Dowd, and you're listening to Ryan's Audiobooks on the Issues Magazine YouTube channel. Today, we're continuing with Section 625 of Prometheus Rising by Robert Anton Wilson. We're picking up in the middle of Chapter 16, the Snafu Principle. The only alternative was suggested sarcastically by playwright Bertolt Brecht, who was hounded by U.S. secret police as a communist, and by East German secret police later as not sufficiently communist. If the government doesn't trust the people, Brecht asked innocently, why doesn't it dissolve them and elect a new people? No way has yet been invented to elect new people, so the government will instead spy on the existing people with increased vigor. Every secret police organization is engaged in both the collection of information and the production of misinformation, euphemistically called disinformation. That is, you score points in the secret police game both by hoarding signals, information units, hiding facts from competitors, and by foisting false signals, fake information units, on the other players. This creates the situation I call optimum snafu, in which every player has rational, not neurotic reasons for suspecting that each and all may be trying to deceive him, gull him, con him, dupe him, and generally misinform him. As Henry Kissinger is alleged to have said, anybody in Washington who isn't paranoid must be crazy. Maybe the UFOs really exist objectively. Or maybe the whole UFO phenomenon is a cover for secret police disinformation policy. Maybe there are black holes where space and time implode. Or maybe black holes were invented to befuddle Russian scientists and send them into little men who wasn't there semantic spookery. Maybe Jimmy Carter really exists. Or maybe he is, as National Lampoon once claimed, an actor named Sidney Goldfarb, trained to project an attractive down-home image. Perhaps only 3 alpha males at the top of the national security pyramid really know the answers to these questions. Or perhaps these 3 are being deceived by certain subordinates, as Lyndon Johnson was deceived about Vietnam by the CIA. Such is the neurosociological logic of a disinformation matrix. It is, as Paul Watzlawick has demonstrated, the logic of schizophrenia. Less than 10 years after the secret police game was established here by the National Security Act of 1948, the books of Dr. Wilhelm Reich were burned in a New York incinerator by government order. This was a shocking sight to some of us, who remembered that we had recently fought a long war against Nazi Germany for, among other things, their crime against civilization of burning books. Shortly thereafter, Dr. Andrew Ivy, former head of a department at Chicago Medical School, was subjected to 10 years of legal harassment for espousing a radical cancer cure. More recently, Dr. Timothy Leary was sentenced to 38 years imprisonment for espousing controversial ideas about neurotransmitter chemicals and re-imprinting the nervous system. Now there is a war on and against holistic physicians. It does not matter whether any or all of these heretics were right or wrong. Scientific truth is only determined after a generation or more of research. It's not determined by throwing the dissenters in prison or burning their books. The point is that the secret police game immediately creates the social context for a return to the mechanisms of the Holy Inquisition. The intelligence of the whole society, the communication networks through which information is received, decoded, and transmitted, is the first casualty. I feel great, and I send fraternal greetings to Dr. Andrei Sakharov in Russia, said Dr. Leary on emerging from prison, registering the fact that the mechanisms of the police state are the same everywhere, as are the myths that protect them. Good Russians believed Dr. Sakharov was a crazed alcoholic, just as good Americans believed Dr. Leary was a half-crazed dope fiend. I once proposed in a magazine article that the UFO is caused by some unusual electromagnetic or gravitational fluid fluctuation, and that this geophysical anomaly creates a real energy disturbance, jumping furniture, electrical failures, ball lightning making odd lights in the sky, etc., and B, disturbance in the brain functioning of animals and humans in the affected area, causing the well-documented animal panics and the rather obvious human hallucinations occurring in such areas. Statistical support for this theory will be found in Persinger and Lafreniere, who have run computer analysis of common patterns in 1,242 UF cases, and 4,818 other abnormal reports, poltergeists, teleportations, miracles, and mysteries of all sorts. This data demonstrates that both UFOs and other energy anomalies tend to cluster along earthquake faults with some peaking before earthquakes. Persinger and Lafreniere also suggest that the geophysical forces at work create both real oddities, jumping furniture, etc., and hallucinations. So that's a job of nice and exquisite discrimination to attempt to find out what's really going on. It's also been proposed by the learned Dr. Jacques Vallée, astronomer, cyberneticist, and physicist, that the UFO phenomenon is being created by a secret police agency as an elaborate cover for a complex disinformation system. A combined Wilson, Persinger, Lafreniere, Vallée theory, probably fitting more of the data than the separate theories, would suggest that the UFO phenomenon is the synergetic product of some geophysical oddity which created weird energy fluctuations and brain change experiences in humans on the scene, and is being manipulated after the fact by one or more intelligence agencies, or by a group even more esoteric. Consider this scenario. Something weird happens. Assume that it is the geophysical abnormality and brain change trauma we posit, but grant also that it might be the alien spaceship believed by folk myth. The following events are equally likely, whatever the weirdity really was. As soon as the witnesses start talking, all interested parties converge on the area. Intelligence Agent Mo comes to conceal evidence that it might have been a spaceship. That is the policy of his agency for their own reasons. Intelligence Agent Joe also arrives to plant evidence that it was a spaceship. That is the policy of his agency, since they're doing just what Dr. Vallée suspects. The British Double-Cross Bureau in World War II engaged in equally complex and absurdist dramas, seemingly totally unrelated to their actual work, but serving as disinformation screens for that work. Philip Klass and other skeptics arrive too, trying to reduce everything to hallucination, even if eyes are burned, cars wrecked, etc. The space freaks, who may or may not be infiltrated by associates of Intelligence Agent Joe, are soon there too, to get the facts to fit their benign Space Brothers reality tunnel. Various occultists are there too, to fit it all into their own mythos of angelology, demonology, etc. What we are saying is that every conspiracy regards itself as an affinity group, men and women who share the same goals and work together well. When you and I do it, it's just an affinity group. When the gang over there does it, it is a damnable conspiracy. True conspiracy does exist when a group conceals evidence, spreads deliberate misinformation, and coerces or terrorizes witnesses. Any affinity group approaches such behavior to the extent that members reinforce each other's participation in the group reality tunnel. Especially concerning such crucial epistemological matters as what is important enough to notice and discuss as against what is trivial and better ignored. How coercive do we have to be to intimidate witnesses? Most people, as our snafu principle explains, are easily led to reporting what an authority figure wants to hear. But let us consider the UFO syndrome further, as illustrating the whole system of brain change and brain programming. UFO contactees frequently show positive neurosomatic turn-on, the bliss-out experience. Some even become faith healers or leaders of occultist groups. Others show negative neurosomatic effects. Light is unbearable, as in schizophrenia. Anxiety attacks may require hospitalization, etc. Metaprogramming consciousness, the ability to choose between alternative reality tunnels, is also reported, in crude metaphors about parallel universes, other realities, occultish jargon. Neurogenetic, Jungian collective unconscious visions are common, ranging from demons, hairy dwarfs, to the space goddess or lady of the stars of ancient and Catholic iconography. Even metaphysiological, quantum-level experience is reported in the UFO literature, ranging from chimes, trips, and out-of-body experience to seeming or alleged teleportations. It must be emphasized most strongly that both positive and negative visions on all these circuits are common in UFOlogy. It seems that if the programmers mean us well, they are accidentally doing ill to many, and if they mean us ill, as Dr. Vallée thinks, they're accidentally doing well to some of us. But this is true of all brain change technology. It seems that Vallée's monistic conspiracy theory is inadequate, as monistic conspiracy theories are inadequate in politics. It's more likely that the UFO experience, like the other brain change experiences we have studied, are sometimes spontaneous and sometimes programmed, in that there are rival gangs of programmers with radically different goals in mind for humanity. When Dr. Leary and I first published a neurological analysis of the Patty Hearst case in We magazine, the editors introduced it with a dramatic headline. The fight for Patty Hearst's mind is the overture to a worldwide battle for the control of consciousness. Not quite. The Hearst case would more appropriately be considered a bar near the end of the second movement of the Mind War Symphony. The first movement was the primitive neuroscience of ancient medieval tyrants, who acquired a great deal of pragmatic know-how about the effects of isolation, terror, and intimidation, and of shamans and occultists who learned how neurochemicals can alter perceived reality tunnels. The second movement began with modern psychology, with evolution and the discovery by millions that morality tunnels could be radically mutated, temporarily and sometimes permanently by neurochemistry. The third movement is the growingly obvious warfare between those who would program all of us and those of us who wish to become our own metaprogrammers. Exercises. 1. Start collecting evidence that your phone is bugged. 2. Everybody gets a letter occasionally that's slightly damaged. Assume that somebody is opening your mail and clumsily resealing it. 3. Look around for evidence that your coworkers or neighbors think you're a bit queer and are planning to have you committed to a mental hospital. 4. Try living a whole week with the program "Everybody likes me and tries to help me achieve all my goals." 5. Try living a whole month with the program "I have chosen to be aware of this particular reality." 6. Try living a day with the program "I am God playing at being a human being. I created every reality I notice." Assume that God is the answer to DeFree John's question, "Who is the one who is living in you now?" 7. Try living forever with the metaprogram "Everything works out more perfectly than I plan it." Thus concludes Section 625 of Prometheus Rising, Chapter 16, the Snafu Principle. Tomorrow we will continue with Section 626, Chapter 17, Quantum Evolution. I will see you then. Alam.